Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program, Capitol Beat. Former US President Donald Trump has been indicted by a grand jury in New York in connection with a hush money payment which he made to pornstar Stormy Daniels in 2006, apparently and allegedly to silence her of a sexual encounter which he had with Daniels. Now, Trump will be facing criminal charges, which of course is happening for the first time in the history of United States of America. Now, how does this indictment impact Donald Trump's future? Can he contest the 2024 elections? And does this indictment lead to more instability in America? I'm joined by a very special panel. All the three people joining me from America. We have senior journalist Seema Sirohi, who joins us from Washington. Thank you, Seema, so much for joining. We have Gopal Ratnam, who is also joining us from Washington. He covers US Congress very closely. Thank you, Gopal. And I'm also joined by Salim Rizvi, who's joining us from New York. Thank you, Salim, so much. And let me begin today's discussion with Seema. Seema, how would you really read into Donald Trump's indictment? I mean, talking purely about the merits into this case, does it really hold water?
That we'll find out. The indictment itself is still secret. We don't know the details, but according to news reports, there are 30 counts on which he's been charged. It remains to be seen whether the case will stick, because of all the cases in progress or under consideration, I would say this was the least sort of expected case on which the prosecutor decided to move. But for Donald Trump, this is going to be a bonanza. He's already fundraising on this. And my mailbox is already flooded with, calls for donations and things like that. As somebody suggested, it could be his mugshot, could be a great campaign poster. So from his point of view, this would be helpful.
Okay. Let me come to Gopal. So many people who say that this is like some kind of a political earthquake in America. It's a huge setback for Donald Trump. But according to what Seema is saying, it certainly doesn't look like a setback. And he seems to be capitalizing on this.
That's exactly right. So it's not really a political setback for Donald Trump, because what it's forcing his potential and current rivals to do is to come to his defense. I mean, you've already seen, for example, the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, saying that if Donald Trump refused to travel to New York, and then the governor of Florida would have been forced to extradite Donald Trump. But if it came to such a situation, Ron DeSantis has already said he would not send Donald Trump to New York. And the former South Carolina governor, Nikki Haley, has already defended Donald Trump. So I think what it's actually doing is potentially helping Donald Trump by getting all of his possible future rivals to come together and defend him. And like Seema pointed out, it's also a huge bonanza for him in terms of fundraising, because even when he was a president and after he left office, he's always portrayed himself as a victim of what he calls the deep state establishment in Washington. And so this is one more data point for him and his supporters to argue that he is in fact a victim and he's being penalized for a crime that, like Seema pointed out, is not the most strongest of legal challenges that Trump is facing at the moment.
Right. But Salim, as what is being seen across the American news channels, and the fact that Trump has been saying that this is some dirty tricks played by behind this indictment, do you really see some kind of a conspiracy, or it's a genuine case, it's a genuine indictment, or one would really see as some kind of a conspiracy as what Trump claims?
Well, Trump is known for bombastic comments and the exaggerated statements, but the fact remains that this is an indictment from Manhattan District Attorney. I mean, he organized all this probe and the jury, grand jury, and the entire thing. So, and it's a political office. He's a Democrat. If you look at this guy, Alvin Bragg, when he was campaigning in November for November elections for District Attorney of Manhattan, he was basically selling this very idea that he will be going after Trump. So, I mean, there's nothing, no surprise over there. They can say all they want that this is a legal matter. Fine, this is a technically a legal case, and they are trying to bring out something out of that falsification of business records, which is a misdemeanor in New York. But he's trying to club it together with that federal election campaign law violations, which is a serious felony kind of thing. So, I mean, on the face of it, it does look it's a legal thing, but well, politics is behind that.
Okay, so you do see you do see it as a political conspiracy. But if I may talk to you about the fallout, Seema, are we going to see Trump being handcuffed, he being paraded before the cameras? Do we see that likelihood? Maybe sometimes next week when he's expected, sometimes on Tuesday.
Well, I read somewhere in one of the news reports that because it's a white collar crime, he will be handcuffed in the front, like his hands will be in front of him rather than behind him. It's not clear how they're going to handle it, but one thing is for sure, the security will be really tight on Tuesday, the day he's supposed to make an appearance for arraignment. Let's see. I don't think either side wants, or at least not the prosecutor's office. They don't want a spectacle, and it would be wise not to make one. And because he's already milking it for all it's worth. And I just want to make one point about the strategy of the prosecutor. It's an untested strategy to raise a crime of hush money into making it seem like a political donation, therefore benefiting the candidate, is a risky strategy. Most legal experts that I've been reading since yesterday, they're not sure it's going to be successful. It's an untested strategy.
Okay. But Gopal, what do you really think? I mean, like falsifying the business records, and if at all it leads to felony, are we really going to see Donald Trump facing jail? Perhaps that's a possibility, and maybe 4 years of sentence or something like that. Are we going to see that if the preliminary charge is approved? Yes.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I mean, I would not say that's a political conspiracy, like you pointed out. Because this is not just the prosecutor acting on his own. There is a grand jury, so evidence has been presented to the grand jury, and the grand jury has decided there is a case. So it's not the prosecutor taking an action on his own. So that's something to clarify. The second point, in terms of whether he's going to face jail time, I mean, that remains to be seen. We haven't seen, like Seema pointed out, the charges are still sealed. We'll only see the complete list of charges when it's unsealed on Tuesday. So we don't know exactly what is in the charges. Everybody is speculating that it could be business falsification, Federal Election Commission crimes, and so on. But maybe there is something else behind it. In terms of jail time, again, I'm not sure whether this particular case itself will lead to jail time. We should also note that there are two more larger cases, much more substantial, that are still being pursued. One is the case in Georgia, where the Fulton County attorney, Fani Willis, is pursuing a case of racketeering and conspiracy, where Donald Trump tried to get the Georgia state to overturn its election results. So that's number one. The second, even bigger one, is the federal case in Washington being pursued by the special counsel, Jack Smith, who is looking into conspiracy behind the January 6th, the insurrection on the U.S. Capitol, and the classified documents case. So those two cases have a much more broader implications for Trump in terms of potential prison time. But so this particular case in New York, we're not sure if that's going to lead directly to a prison time yet.
Right. Salim, but there are a lot of people who are raising questions on whether at all Donald Trump will turn up on Tuesday. Are there any questions on that? That could be a possibility where he doesn't turn up, where he's probably supposed to face a mugshot, fingerprinting, and a court appearance, but the likelihood probably would be that he doesn't turn up. What do you say to that?
Well, you can never know. When you talk about Trump, you can't be sure of what step he will take because he is highly unpredictable. And right now, like it's being widely reported, quoting his advisors who are around him, that he is upset, very angry, and he is looking at this political side of this rather than much of the legal side. So he wants to make it a political spectacle, and he wants it to be a media show, a circus. He wants to come out in front of the camera. I mean, it's been reported that he was asking, well, which way will the cameras be placed? And should I smile while I'm going through that? And should I be handcuffed like this at the back? So, I mean, he is trying to sell this and just milk it, as Seema said this very rightly. And he is a political animal in that sense. But one more point for the earlier point about Bragg, district attorney. I mean, New York is a democratic hub. This is a center, democratic, I mean, stronghold. And they have not forgotten and forgiven Donald Trump for 2016 defeat of Hillary Clinton. I mean, they just cannot forget about that. And they want to pay it. And as Nikki Haley said, this revenge. So I think she is trying to allude to that aspect of it. So in that sense, I was saying this is highly political in that sense. But obviously, it is a technical legal case. And as it's been said that this is a one of the weakest cases. I mean, other cases like Mar-a-Lago classified document case. I mean, those, I think it's obstruction of justice is the very serious charge in that sense. So that is where he might go to jail. But in this one, the link is pretty weak. Michael Cohen is the link. I mean, the whole case is depending on that guy who was charged. I mean, he was prison, he went to prison. He was charged with lying and falsification and tax fraud and whatnot. So, I mean, like many experts have said that, but I'm no lawyer, so I don't know about that. But what it seems is that this is obviously the weakest of the cases.
Right. But Seema, there could be two possibilities that either he is fined or he faces the jail. So what is the higher probability that he could be fined and he could be let off and then probably he can contest 2024? Or what is it? What is the arrangement of the Constitution? I'm talking totally in context with the Indian Constitution. Like supposing if a member is disqualified for 2 years and more, he cannot contest elections. But in the American Constitution, do you have a provision like this? I mean, what are the two probabilities you would look at?
I'm no legal expert, but from what I've read, this doesn't bar him from running as a candidate. So let's see. If other cases come up the process, especially like, was mentioned earlier, the case in Georgia, the case about classified documents, those are far more serious. But what it's going to do is going to whip up the base, the support, the MAGA supporters, Make America Great Again supporters, who are already out in the streets in small numbers and outside his residence, the Mar-a-Lago residents. So what it's doing is going to harm other Republican hopefuls. That, I think, is the biggest political fallout. They're going to, this case is going to suck the oxygen out of the room for the rest of them. They've been forced to defend Trump, right? See, before this whole thing happened, before the indictment, each candidate or aspirant was trying to differentiate himself or herself from the Trump position and somehow sort of skirt around the idea of Trump and what he stands for.
Right.
But now they have no choice but to defend him. And that, to me, is the biggest, sort of political fallout for the Republican Party.
Right. Indeed. And Gopal, but talking about the fallout on the American society, we see it more deeply polarized? And also, what is the kind of reaction you are hearing from the common man on the street? How are they reacting to Donald Trump's indictment?
I don't know about the common man on the street, but I mean, common man on the street is obviously, a member of the polarized class. So whoever you're speaking with is mediating all of this through the channels from which they get their news. So I would expect that if you go to certain parts of the country, which is hardcore Republican parts of the country, you will hear this, the echo of what Donald Trump is saying, that this is in fact a quote unquote witch hunt. He's being prosecuted for things that other people would not be. And as Donald Trump's son pointed out yesterday in a few Twitter posts, that he compared what is happening in New York to what has happened with Stalin and Pol Pot and Mao and all of the other repressive countries where opposition candidates are put in jail. So that's what you would hear. But again, like Salim pointed out, New York Democrats would be in joy if he were to somehow be found guilty and sent to prison. But in terms of the options you offered, in addition to fines and potential jail time, the whole case could fall apart when it goes to trial. So that's also a possibility that in New York, the case, when it goes to trial, would probably be, the jury could throw it out at that point in time. So that's another possibility as well.
Yes. Salim, for the viewers who would be watching the program in India and who probably are still trying to understand the complexity of the situation, there's a lot of complexity involved in the whole case. But really want to understand from you that when Donald Trump turns up on Tuesday, what is the arraignment procedure going to look like? If you could just explain, like stepwise, what are you really expecting?
Basically, now the district attorney's office is coordinating with the Secret Service and the Trump lawyers when to and how to make Donald Trump surrender.
Right.
This is the term being used. So, Secret Service is the agency which is constitutionally mandated to take proper care of the security aspect. So they have the upper hand. I mean, they will decide how and where and when, the front gate or the back gate or any other service related whatnot, whatever the Manhattan court system is. So they will basically take the upper hand, and security will be the upmost thing. He will be arraigned. Before that, he'll be booked. He will be formally arrested, a mugshot taken, digital fingerprint will be taken, and a cheek swab also, and then he will be given a booking number, and after that he'll be arraigned in the court. Usually what happens is there's a holding room adjacent to the court, but obviously this is not a usual case, so he won't be having the holding in that adjacent room. So he will be directly from wherever he's screened. It's not decided. It hasn't been decided as yet. Right. And it's being discussed that the booking place will be somewhere very secure. It might not be in that complex itself. Then after that, he'll be brought into the court. Then he'll be arraigned in front of a judge. Judge will read out the charges and then ask for the plea. And obviously, it's being expected and presumed not guilty plea. Then he will be released on bail of his own recognizance. So that is the procedure. And it will be, to the extent he'll be treated like any other defendant, that he will be naturally photographed and fingerprinting taken and cheek swab and the booking number. But apart from that, handcuffing aspect, Secret Service has the upper hand. I mean, that really constricts a person. So if he's handcuffed, that might be a security issue. So Secret Service will decide. So that is one of the things. But this probable cause aspect in this about the case itself, the jury had this probable cause aspect to decide whether to indict him or not. Probable cause is easy. But when you go to the trial jury, there has to be a beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
So in that sense also, it's a very difficult case. That's what experts are saying. I mean, I'm no lawyer, so that's where things stand.
Right. But Seema, I was listening to Fox News and CNN, and one of the Republican legislators, they were saying that, probably, I'm not too sure, but I thought I must clarify this with you, that since the indictment is not made, public. We do not know the charges. It will be unsealed on Tuesday. But does that leave uh, room for any kind of negotiation between the district attorney and Donald Trump's legal team? I mean, that's
I don't think so. I think things have gone beyond that point. Now it's a case. He'll be arraigned, and then, as Salim said, it's going to go to a trial. And that's when the best hope for the Trump people is that it falls apart, because it's a very difficult strategy to convince a jury and a judge that, this hush money that went through Cohen, who himself has been convicted and has served jail sentence. So, I mean, it's a very weak kind of situation, legally speaking, from a layperson's point of view. And also I think differentiate between what will happen in the court and what will happen in the Congress, the People's Court, the people's representatives. There, the Republicans will make noise. They will say that it's a witch hunt. They have already said that the legal system has been weaponized, quote unquote. And the Democrats are saying that, well, nobody is above the law, not even the president. But there's no question that the US is entering into some sort of uncharted waters with this case, because it's the first time a president has been indicted for a criminal offense. So let's see what happens. But I worry about the fallout in terms of, the country is already very polarized. Coming up on an election, later this year, things will get into high gear. People will have announced whether they are going to run or not, like Ron DeSantis of Florida. And President Biden himself, he has to yet formally announce. Now, all this is going on through a very, very charged campaign season that is coming up. I worry about violence breaking out, protesters, because it's a 50-50 divide pretty much in the country. And as you know, with the January 6th insurrection, people can be incited. They are very charged up. They believe in whichever narrative they want to believe in. They're not necessarily wedded to the facts or what the facts are. They choose to believe one set of facts as opposed to another set of facts. So that's what I'm thinking about after all this.
That's quite a serious bit that, it could create some kind of a law and order problem. But Gopal, that brings me to the question that how is the police over there gearing up? Because they must have preempted that it will lead to some kind of a lawlessness, some kind of a riot-like situation. How is the police gearing up for Tuesday specifically?
I've only read that I read in the New York Times just this morning that the New York City Police Department has asked the entire force to be available for call-up on Tuesday. And as Sally pointed out, the sort of the interaction between how the city police and the judicial system works alongside the Secret Service is something that's, I'm sure, being discussed at the moment. But I'm sure, New York City Police is a fairly professional, big organization, so I'm sure they'll have enough security cordons and so on to prevent any kind of outbreak of violence. But another point that Seema was raising, Republicans in Congress, they are actually secretly hoping that somehow Democrats will take care of the Trump problem. And if you recall, the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, even after January 6th, was quoted as saying in private that he was hoping the Democrats would somehow take care of Donald Trump without the Republicans having to act. So despite all of the public comments about, this is a political witch hunt and so on and so forth, that's really the private hope and wish of many Republicans, that somehow something will stick and somehow they can be rid of this Donald Trump problem and move on from him to other potential candidates. So that's their wish. So that's where I think secretly that's what they would say if you ask them.
I think discussed all the possibilities which would happen or likely to happen. But Salim, for the last comments, I would like to come to you. That can we expect any kind of an anti-climax besides all what we have discussed? Can there be an anti-climax on Tuesday? Something which would be like a surprise element.
I don't see any really, but when it comes to Trump again, I mean, you can't be sure. For all you know, for all we know, he might on Monday morning gets up and says, "No way, I'm not going to go to New York. Let DeSantis send me, get this extradition thing done." Whatever. I mean, I'm just presuming it. I mean, with Trump, you can never be sure, but things have really gone pretty much far legally and constitutionally and legally speaking. He has to surrender, and it's between Trump's team, the Secret Service, and the District Attorney's Office. They are negotiating, coordinating the surrender. So it has gone to that point.
Right. So, of course, all eyes would be on what happens on Tuesday, and it's really a political earthquake time in States of America. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining. Seema Sirohi, Gopal, Salim, it was wonderful having you on the program. And thank you so much. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this discussion, share this video as widely as you can, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned to the Federal. Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.